CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 3, Part 22, Audio by Renee Matthew. There was a cultural value which the people always followed, and it was the organization of people. They gave very much importance to the organization of people. That is primarily because they wanted people to collectively produce food, and also food had to be available to everybody in the community. So organization was given much importance. They organized these people under clan elders. They started organizing them under clan elders. There were so many people who were heads of communities. Polygamy was very common in those days, people who married more than once. And Arawaks were animists. Okay? In many other societies, shamans played a very important role. Something similar to a doctor, but they had all the sorcery and they had other magical systems and other beliefs. They played an important role as healers and intermediaries. They used to intermediate between people and between God, between pagan belief and all that, even between a disease where they believed that it was because of their lack of faith that people got diseased. Between this world and that of the supernatural, they always had connection with the supernatural elements. That's why I told you sorcery, black magic and all that. They made people believe in it and proceed with it. So this is one picture taken from the shaman treatment of people with their diseases and all that. The Arawaks used gold for ornaments. They did not attach any value to the metal, but the Europeans did. Arawaks did not give much value to gold because they always felt that it was dug out from the earth and it need not be given much importance. But Europeans started giving so much of importance to gold. They were very happy to even exchange gold for glass beads. Will anybody do that now? No. So they used to exchange it like any other metal. They used to exchange it for glass beads, which were brought by the Europeans. Europeans purchased gold. They had a fascination for it because it seemed more beautiful. It was really pretty looking. The art of weaving was highly developed in the Arawak community. The hammock was one of their specialities, the art of weaving. Okay. And one which captured the imagination of the Europeans. Europeans were fascinated by the hammock, the way they weaved clothes. So look at the way they studied all these arts from different people whom they considered inferior because they lived close to nature. But Europeans never accepted, and neither did they write about it in their entries and diaries. The Arawaks were basically generous. They did not want to fight with others. They were very happy to collaborate with the Spanish in their search for gold. They had very good intentions in the beginning itself, especially to join hands with Spain in search of gold. But then we saw that the Spanish policy forced them to become brutal because they were forced to resist. They started operating under force towards the Arawaks. But it did not have any disastrous consequences for them. Because they were attacked, they attacked back. So within 25 years of contact with the Spanish, very little remained of the Arawaks or their way of life. The Spanish completely looted and plundered them, so nothing else was remaining, especially of their way of life, which was really a very good style of living. Now look at the style of living, the culture and all that it is depicted in these pictures. More pictures can be found in the browser system. There was a people called as Tupinamba. They lived on the east coast of South America and in the villages in the forest. So most of the people living in the Americas were tribals. The name Brazil is derived from the Brazil wood tree. There is a tree known as Brazil wood tree, and that is why it has got this name, one of the largest states in South America. So this particular people, this group of tribe lived there, Tupinamba. They did not, or they were not able to clear dense forest for cultivation as they had no access to iron. They were not able to clear the dense forest because there was no access to iron. But they had healthy and plentiful supply of fruits, vegetables and fish. And they did not have to depend on agriculture. So much of healthy things were there. Plenty supply of everything was there. It was not required for them to clear the dense forest. You should understand that they lived in harmony with the forest. They lived in harmony with nature, and that is why they were so healthy. The tribals, basically, they are like that. The Europeans, what did they do? They envied them. They were jealous of them. Because of their happy freedom, they were so happy, they were so complacent, self-sufficient with all that they had. They had no king, they had no army or church to regulate their lives. So what happened? All the eyes of the Europeans were on the Arawaks. They just wanted to conquer it. Because so much of resource is there. So many things are available there, but nothing is there to regulate them, was the envy of the Europeans. The state systems of Central and South America, very important point. What was the exact system which was followed there? It was in contrast to the system which was followed in the Caribbean and Brazil. Highly organized states in Central America was there. There was a general surplus of corn. Corn was given in surplus, which provided the basis for urbanized civilization of Aztecs, Mayas and Incas. Corn was their staple diet maybe. So they, whether it is yes or no, they always cultivated corn. It was highly different in contrast to the Caribbean and Brazil culture. Very organized in central and southern parts of America. I've given pictures of the Mayas, the Incas and the Aztecs, the civilization. We are going to look into each of them in detail. We saw that they had this monumental architecture style, and the remains of these monuments are still available today because it mesmerizes the visitors today, because without much technology, they were able to bring up these monuments and the architecture which was used for it. People in the olden days. Perhaps they forced people to work under them, which is not possible today, without any rights, without any humaneness. But their monumental architecture is well known even today. The Aztecs. We need to look at the Aztecs. In the 12th century, the Aztecs had migrated from the north into the central valley of Mexico. Mexico is named after their god Mexitli. You can look at the Mexicans, they're very colorful. Yes, very colorful, and this reminds me of the pizza that we get, the Mexican pizza, which is so colorful. Colorful food that they always have apart from that. Okay, so they started expanding their empire by defeating different tribes. That is why they have got this intermixture of so many tribes there. And these tribes, whomever they conquered, were forced to pay tribute. So many people constituted Mexico in those days. Of course, the Aztec society was hierarchical. It had a hierarchy. The nobility included those who were nobles by birth, priests and others. Nobility, that was the first rank. And they were always awarded the rank. Now it becomes very difficult for the other people to live when there is rank. It is not fair. But one particular point, one relieving point is that the hereditary nobility was a very small minority. They were very small in number. And they occupied the senior positions in the government. What about the hereditary nobility? Though they were small in number, they occupied the senior positions in the government, the army and the priesthood. Government, army and the priesthood. And the nobles chose among them a supreme leader who ruled until his death. There was a leader for them to rule them, especially from the government, the army and the priesthood, and they chose one person, one supreme leader, and that person ruled until his death. The king was regarded as a representative of the sun on earth. The king was a representative of the sun on earth. They thought that, or they always believed that king is an incarnation of the sun. Okay, so he had all the rights to command, rule and even dominate the people. They always obeyed. They were happy to obey their king. Warriors, priests and nobles were the most respected groups. So apart from the hereditary nobility, these people were also respected. But you should remember that trade is something which expands the economy of any place. So traders also enjoyed a lot of privilege. They often served the government as ambassadors and spies. S-P-I-E, spying the place. So from then itself you had ambassadors and spies from that culture, from that age itself. There were a lot of people who were talented, especially artisans, physicians and wise teachers. They were also respected. So now they are trying to tell which all segments of the society was respected. So we have this one category, then we have got the warriors, priests and nobles. So all these people were given position in the society. Land was limited for the Aztecs, and Aztecs undertook reclamations. Okay, they had a lot of rules regarding it. They started making artificial islands. They were known for that. Even now we have got it. The Chinampas in Lake Mexico. What they did is they weaved huge reed mats. They were very good in weaving, and they covered them with mud and plants. Between these exceptionally fertile lands, canals were constructed, on which in 1325 was built the capital city, Tenochtitlan. So they did it artificially, but with so much of naturality, you can say like that, covering them with mud and plants, and they connected the fertile. You should remember that these, because they were constructed artificially, it was fertile, and canals were also constructed, and they built the capital city like that. Now the palaces and pyramids started rising up dramatically. They gave importance to the architecture of palaces and pyramids out of the lake. They started building it. Because of the Aztecs, they were constantly engaged in war. And because they were always engaged in war, the most impressive temples were dedicated to the gods of war and the sun. They believed that their king is the sun, right? So now they dedicated all their temples to the gods of war, and they were so much engaged in war always. That is because everybody envied them. It was so beautiful. The land was so big and rich. So everybody envied them, and that is why it was like that. And they did not want to give much, preference to the other things in life. The next point is, the empire rested on a rural base. They were rurals primarily in behavior and the way they kind of dealt with many things. People started cultivating corn, beans, squash, pumpkins, manioc root, potatoes and other crops. All these things were given so much of importance. Everything was actually made on the land. They gave importance to it also because the land was really fertile. Land was actually owned not just by individuals but also by clans. They organized public construction works. Many people started owning it, especially by clans. And they organized public construction works also. So they were good in so many things. That is what you have to understand. So many things. So this is the Chinampas, the artificial islands. I told you that they interviewed all these reeds and the way they made it. It is like floating island, but it is not. It is all artificiality, but the land was really fertile, and there's so much of importance that they gave to maintain it. Chinampas, the artificial island. Isn't it beautiful the way it is brought up? The look itself is very beautiful, right? So there were a lot of European serfs and peasants. They were attached to the land, and it was owned by the nobility and cultivated them in exchange for part of the harvest. Okay, so nobility actually owned them, and they had a dealing with the nobles, like how we saw in Europe itself, like how we saw in the other parts of the world. They had an agreement that they have to give a part of their harvest to these nobles. That was something very important. Now the poor would sometimes sell their children as slaves. This happened in many parts of the world, but that was only for a limited number of time, like limited period, and the slaves could buy back their freedom also. For some time the children were sold as slaves, and after their stipulated time, after they finished their work, they could buy back their freedom also. So that was the kind of freedom which they enjoyed. For some time they can go and work and get the money, and then after that they have to come back. Like it is like they did not enjoy any freedom during this particular period of time. Okay, the Aztecs made sure that all children went to school. They were very particular about education, especially the children of the nobility attended a system known as Kalmakak. Okay, and the children were trained to become military and religious leaders. They were trained to become religious and military leaders in all these places, the Kalmakak, and this is how they did it. Like all these places have got the military training and all that. Others, the people who were not a part of the nobility. Nobility went to these places where only few children will be there and they enjoyed these privileges. The other part went to a place known as Tepokali, which will be seen in the upcoming audios, okay? Like what they learned there. They learned history, myth, religion and ceremonial songs. Of course, the style of teaching was different in both the institutions or both the styles. Alright?